All right, so this is part two. After they were some distance from Micah's house, the men who were in the houses near it were mustered and caught up with the Danites. They called to the Danites, who turned to face them and said to Micah, "What's the matter with you that you mustered the men? So, why did you get all these men together?" Like, first of all, they have the audacity to ask Micah why he got all these men together and what he's doing. Micah said, "You took the gods I had made and the priest and went away. What do I have left? How can you say to me, what's the matter with you?" Exactly. Y'all came up in his stuff, taking his stuff out his house and took his priest. So what you mean? What you mean? The Danites said to him, "Don't raise your voice against us, or angry men will attack you." Now remember, there's about 600 of them waiting at the gate, and you and your family will lose your lives. The Danites went on their way, and Micah turned to go back home, because he saw that they were stronger than he was. After they had taken the gods Micah had made and the priests that belonged to him, they went to Laish to a quiet and unsuspecting people. They unalived them with their swords and burned the city. There was no one to rescue them because it was far from Sidon. So remember, over here, where it says there was nothing lacking in the land and no oppressive ruler, they were far from the Sidonians, having no alliance with anyone. It was in a valley that belonged to Beth Rahab. They built the city and lived in it. They named the city Dan after the name of their ancestor Dan, who was born to Israel. The city was formerly named Laish. The Danites set up the carved image for themselves. Jonathan, son of Gershom, son of Moses, so his grandson, and his sons were priests for the Danite tribe until the time of the exile from the land. So they set up for themselves Micah's carved image that he had made, and it was there as long as the house of God was in Shiloh. So I have not done a study on Shiloh. However, in Joshua chapter 18 talks about the land distribution at Shiloh. I'll eventually do a study on this, but I wanted to mention something to y'all. So when I read this, it made me think of something, and I think that this is a safe assumption. It says, when the territory of the descendants of Dan slipped out of their control, they went up and fought against Lasham. So I'm going to assume that the reason it slipped out of their hands is because you see how easily they went and took all those idols, even though God had told them not to, they did it anyway. So I think at this time, even though they had their inheritance, and these were the two territories where they sent the 5 spies, I assume that because of how in Jeremiah, God talks about how the people of Israel had turned their eyes and ears away from him. So they were probably worshiping gods at this time. Now, when God told them to go and take territories, they were supposed to completely level the ground, leave nothing, no idols, no nothing. I think that they went against them. I think that once they got their inheritance, they started worshiping the gods and having carved images and things like that, like they were doing in Egypt. They brought those practices back to when they had their inheritance. So that's how they lost their land, because God was like, if you're not going to, follow my directions and be with me, then I'm not going to be with you, and you are going to be overthrown and your territory will be taken away from you. He told them that, but I guess they figured whatever. But that's how they lost their inheritance. So that's why in Judges, they were looking for land. So at the very beginning, in those days, there was no king in Israel. The Danite tribe was looking for territory to occupy. Up to that time, no territory had been captured by them among the tribes of Israel. So I guess they lost Leshem too, or Leshem. So they had no land. After they lost their inheritance, they had no land. They took control of Leshem. I guess they lost them too, since they have no territory here. So that's how the tribe of Dan lost their inheritance. And God told them in Genesis, y'all will be like poisonous vipers. Y'all will be snakes unto other people. And that's how we got to Jeremiah.